Hey everybody, welcome back to the Single Man Podcast. It's Carlton French here for episode 51 with two very special guests. My mom, Nina French, my dad, Jay French.
And Nina stopped talking to me at work. She was a very conscientious employee, and she didn't want to have any perception that she wasn't doing a good job in the workplace. And so that's when I proposed to your mom.
The next day?
Yeah, that morning. And she said yes.
At 33 years of marriage, would you say it's even worth it?
Yes, definitely. I think marriage is a beautiful thing.
One thing I would say is marriage is not a 50-50 relationship. It's really 100-100. You got to be all in for a marriage really to work and to thrive. And I think for most women from their husbands, if they felt seen, heard, connected, or attached to their husband and praised by their husband, they would definitely feel loved.
The biggest challenge by far for me has been letting go of my children, letting you and your sisters go. You're just a part of me that's walking around outside of me.
When you're going through those tough times, you definitely have to communicate or your relationship will start to drift. So I wanted you to know I love you, we love you, more importantly, God loves you.
You hugged before you got married?
Yeah, we did that.
Oh my gosh.
But, it definitely wasn't easy when you're attracted to someone.
What's been the biggest challenge of being married? I'm sure it hasn't been easy. 33 years is a long time.
I would say the biggest challenge for us has been...
Welcome to the Single Man Podcast, where we delve into candid conversations with Christian men about their journey to faith, advice for their younger selves, and navigating dating. With a heart to reach men from all walks of life, dive into real stories of redemption, growth, and the hope found in following Jesus. I'm your host, Carlton French, a 30-year-old single Christian, and I'm excited for you to listen to this week's episode. Let's jump into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Single Man Podcast. It's Carlton French here for episode 51 with two very special guests. You'll hopefully have seen them in the last two episodes, episode 49, where we had my mom, Nina French, and then episode 50, where we had my dad, Jay French, telling their stories of how they came to faith and how they navigated life really before they met one another. And now tonight, they're here for episode 51, the second to last episode of the Single Man Podcast, and the final episode of our 4-part marriage series that we've done for the last few episodes, to tell their story of how they met, how they dated, and how they've navigated marriage. Mom, Dad, how are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Doing great, Carlton. We're pleased to be here.
Yeah, welcome back. How was y'all's first experience on the podcast?
It was really good. I thought it was very good. You did a great job.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having the opportunity to share with people and just spend some time with you as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, if you didn't see each of their individual stories, definitely go back and watch episode 49 and 50 before you listen to the whole episode today. But we're going to jump into things today because we already covered a lot of the background on each of y'all in the previous two episodes. So for anybody who doesn't want to go back real quick, maybe just give a quick 1-minute summary of your testimony each.
Yeah, so Carlton, I grew up as a very active kid in South Georgia. When I was about 9, I got into some mischief in the neighborhood, and through that, I knew those things I was doing really weren't pleasing to God because our family had grown up going to church and learning different Bible stories. And as a 9-year-old, I ended up accepting Jesus into my life. I really believe that's when I became a Christian, but it wasn't until the summer between my sophomore and junior year in college that I really began thinking about my faith and how important was it really in my life. In my junior year in college, I got involved in a discipleship group, and through that group, I really started learning about the Bible, how to study the Bible, learning about God, and that's when I really felt like I was growing as a Christian. And for the next 25 years or so, I was really growing and serving in local churches wherever I lived. But then in my mid-40s to mid-50s, I went through a dry time spiritually in my life. But the last few years have been really enjoyable, joyous time. And so I've really felt like I've been growing in my faith during these last few years.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. How about you, Mom?
Well, I was born in the Holy Land. I was born in Jerusalem. So I was born into a Catholic family, so I went to Catholic school in Bethlehem. And then when we came to the United States, I also went to Catholic schools. I went to Catholic middle school, Catholic high school, even college. And even with all that exposure, I didn't know that it was possible to have a relationship with Jesus. You know, it was I had no idea that there was such a thing as having friendship, a relationship with Jesus. It really wasn't until I was about 29 years old when some friends from work invited me to a retreat, a church retreat, where I actually heard the words of Jesus spoken. I heard the Bible being spoken, and I felt like I felt like Jesus was speaking to my heart. And that's when my personal relationship with Jesus started.
Yeah, that's great. And how old were both of you when you first met one another? Do you remember that?
Well, we met in 1991.
Yeah.
So I was 26.
Okay.
Almost 27.
Okay. And Mom, how old about you?
I was 29.
29?
29.
Okay. So I'd love for y'all to share with myself and the audience basically your story of how you two met from each of your perspectives. You're 26, Dad. Mom, you were 29. What was that experience like? And then what was dating like in those early stages?
Okay. Back in July of 1985, I accepted a job with AT&T in New Jersey.
Yeah, and then 5 months after that, in December of 1985, I began working for AT&T in Georgia. So Nina was in New Jersey, I was in Georgia. Fast forward almost 5 years to the fall of 1990. I was trying to get some different experiences young in my career, and I had an opportunity to take a sales role. I interviewed for 4 different jobs. 3 were in the Southeast, 1 was in New Jersey, and that was to be working on the Middle East sales team, supporting the sales in the Middle East for AT&T. And it seemed to me like that was a foreign country, New Jersey, from someone that grew up in the southeastern United States. But over a period of about 4 weeks, a verse came to mind 4 or 5 different times, and that verse was Jeremiah 29:11. And that verse says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." And that, seeing that verse just come up several times over a few weeks period of time, really gave me the confidence that the job in New Jersey was what I should take. And so I moved to New Jersey. Initially, I was working in Baskin Ridge, New Jersey, which is a town there. And a few months later, in January 91, our work location moved to a different building, and we were working in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, in January of 91.
Well, in February of that same year, so February of 1991, I accepted a job with AT&T working in the international arena, which was something that was a real passion of mine. I had studied Spanish in high school and in college, and I think that really helped me get that job because the job was supporting our sales team in Central America and South America. And so my first day or so on the job, we sat in cubicles.
Yeah.
I had open floor and cubicles, and my first couple of days on the job, I needed to make some copies, so I took the copies I needed to make and went over to the copy machine.
And when I saw your mom coming to make copies, it was someone I hadn't met in the workplace, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go meet the new employee to our location. So I grabbed some papers to make some copies. I didn't really need to make any, but so I grabbed some copies, and we met at the copy machine. So it really wasn't love at first sight. We were just meeting a fellow coworker. But 2 months later, in April of 91, we had an international sales conference in Hawaii. And so all of our team there in New Jersey and all of our teams all over the world came to Hawaii, and we had a sales conference there. It was always an exciting time meeting people from all over the world. Many people that were married they actually took their spouses so that they could have some vacation time after the sales conference.
Yes, but I took my parents. I used my frequent flyer miles to fly my parents to Hawaii, and it was a really nice experience for them. That's where they first met Jay, and that's where, it was a really nice time. I actually, during that time, I ended up spending a lot more time with Jay's team, the Middle East team, rather than my team, because me being from the Middle East and they being from the Middle East, we kind of connected, and it was a young group of people, and it was fun. It was just fun to hang around with them. I had some interest in Jay at the time, but at the time I was involved in a long-distance relationship, so I really didn't pursue that interest in Jay.
Yeah, and I think for me at that time when we were in Hawaii, I also had an interest in Nina, but I didn't really know if she was a Christian or not, and so it wasn't something that I felt led to pursue.
Yeah.
Well, that summer was a really special summer for me because it was the time when my dad and I took a trip together. We went to Jerusalem and we went to Egypt. We went and visited family in Jerusalem, and then we took a trip all over Egypt, just the two of us. It was a very special time for me. But when I did come back from that trip that summer, the long-distance, long-term relationship ended. And shortly after that is when my friends from the work environment invited me to that church retreat I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and so Nina and I, we were just peers in the company. We were both managers for the company. We were good friends in the workplace. We'd eat lunch together on occasions in the cafeteria with each other or other people. And I really sensed God was working in her life. From some of the conversations we would have. I knew she was considering going on the fall retreat, but then I got a surprise. One day she told me that she probably wasn't going on the fall retreat because she was thinking about joining a bowling league. And I was shocked at that because I never heard anything about bowling in her life. So I thought that was a little crazy, and I went and talked to her friends about it and said, hey, you need to talk to her about the fall retreat.
Well, I didn't end up joining that bowling league, but I did go to the fall retreat, and that's when my personal relationship with Jesus began. That's when Jesus became personal to me.
Yeah. And so when that happened, I was definitely interested in your mom.
When what happened?
When she became a Christian.
Okay.
And it was exciting seeing her growing in her faith. And it actually, encouraged me to grow in my faith even more. However, I didn't ask her out because I really wanted to make sure that she wanted to grow because she wanted to grow, not because she might be, dating me or whatever.
Yeah.
So at that point in my life, I hadn't gone out with a person in more than one time in the last 5.5 years. So I'd gone through a long stretch where I hadn't really had a girlfriend or dated much at all.
But then in November of that year, I invited your dad to my house for dinner. I made my favorite dish, which was maqlubet batinjan. He didn't really care for it too much. But
What is that?
It's a rice dish with eggplant and meat, and maqlube in Arabic means upside down. You turn it upside down. It looks like a cake, but it's really, I love it. It's delicious, and there are different varieties of it. But it was my favorite, and I invited your dad. I made that for him, and I was really excited also to show him pictures of my trip to Jerusalem and to Egypt, to show him the family pictures of my trip.
Yeah.
And when I was driving over that night, it was a Friday night, and there was a lot of traffic on the way to our place where she lived. And I was thinking to myself, I am not dating this person. This traffic is too much.
Yeah.
But, we had a nice time. And so the following weekend, I invited Nina over to my place for dinner. And that same weekend, she actually had to deliver a sales proposal down to Miami. And so with AT&T at the time, we had like a car service that would pick you up, say, from your apartment or your house and take you to the airport, kind of like what Uber is today, Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
And so I knew the travel agency because we worked in the same company. So she went to the airport, flew down, And so I called the travel agent, canceled her pickup from the airport. And so when she came back from delivering the proposal, I was standing there with a sign with her name on it to pick her up from the airport.
Yeah, it was really nice. I thought it was a really nice surprise, and that was one of many surprises that I would get from Jay.
Oh, wow.
And so one interesting thing during that time frame, like we were good friends, as I shared earlier, in the workplace, but when we started actually going out, spending some time together, it really wasn't public information that we were dating. And Nina stopped talking to me at work. So she was a very conscientious employee, and she didn't want to have any perception that she wasn't doing a good job in the workplace. So though she would talk to me before we started dating, once we started dating, she wouldn't talk to me at all. And so we had to talk about that, of course. And then just a few weeks later, my work team had a Christmas party where you could invite your spouse or your plus one, your date. And that's when I invited Nina to go with our team to our Christmas party. And that's when people in the workplace learned that we were dating.
So wait, when were you officially dating, would you say? Or
Well,
was there a conversation let's
Yeah, I don't know if
start
we even
dating?
had a conversation.
I don't think we had an official conversation. I think maybe now they do. They have these official conversations.
okay.
But no, back then we didn't. It just was, it flowed, naturally flowed. We enjoyed each other's company.
So
and
it was
just-
inviting him to dinner a date or no?
That was that's when I say we started dating.
Yeah, I would say
was a
that
date.
was a date, yes.
Okay. And then you invited her the next weekend to
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
place.
then he cooked for me.
And that was a date
Yep.
Right.
as well.
Yes.
Okay. But you never talked about you're only going to date one another or something? That was never a...
No.
No, we never had an official discussion about that.
Yeah.
It's just the way things worked out.
Okay. Interesting.
It was understood, I think. It was
Yeah.
understood. Yeah.
Okay. So then you go to the Christmas party together and everyone finds out at the workplace. That kept y'all together, didn't break up the relationship, I guess.
No.
No. I mean, everybody was excited because people on my team knew Nina. I mean, all of our teams were so close. We all worked in the same little area. It was a great work environment. People were excited about coming to work every day and doing a good job. A lot of young professionals. So, tremendous energy in the workplace. And so everybody just got along. And
Yeah.
teams helped each other. If one team was having to put several proposals together, maybe another team from another region of the world would help. So it was a good dynamic.
Okay. Wow. So then you were 26 when that happened, Dad, and you were
Right.
29
Correct.
when that first
Right.
date at your house happened, Mom.
That's right.
So then how did you each pursue guidance from God and then your families through that process of dating?
Yeah, I remember after we'd gone out 4 times or did 4 things together, I remember calling my parents and telling them, and they were definitely excited for me. Especially, I remember my mom being excited because I hadn't dated anyone in so long. And of course, moms and dads are like, "Hey, when are you gonna go out on a date or get married or whatever?" But they were excited for me. It was exciting to see someone. Nina was growing in her faith and spending time in the Word, and it was exciting to see someone you care about growing, and that really attracted me. But her growing made me want to grow even more and read my Bible and pray and grow. So that was helpful.
Well, Jay and I had similar conservative values, and we also had similar goals. I knew Jay was growing in his faith. He was very involved in the church. He was always doing some leadership stuff like he's been doing for years now. And as a new Christian, I was very excited about reading the Word. So I was in the Word a lot. I was growing. At that time, I was also going back to New York. I was living in New Jersey, but going back to New York to visit my mom and dad and Siti, which is my grandmother. She lived with us. So I'd go home every weekend. But after Jay and I started dating, I stopped going back home every weekend so that I could spend more time with Jay, so that I could attend church on Sunday, which I hadn't been doing before. So faith and family was very important. I mean, I knew my parents had liked Jay because they'd already met him in Hawaii. So the faith and family was very important to me.
Yeah, and shortly after that, in January of '92 now, we had a conference in Atlanta that all the international folks had to go to. It was a product conference that we needed to attend. And so Nina went with her team, I went with my team. And after that conference on the weekend, we drove down 2 hours from Atlanta to Auburn, Alabama, where my parents lived. And that's when Nina met my parents.
Oh, wow.
And so, that went well. So, another box check, so to speak, with your families supporting what you're doing. 2 months later, in March, my parents decided to take a trip up to New York to meet Nina's parents and her family. And so they came up. We had a nice dinner at lunch dinner at her parents' place in New York.
Wow.
And then
that was just 4 months into dating?
Yeah, 4 months. And then so after the dinner, while everybody was still there, I actually asked her father if he would come back into one of the back bedrooms, and I asked him if I could have his permission to ask Nina to be my wife. And so he,
after 4 months?
Yeah, so he definitely gave me his blessing, and so that was definitely exciting. And so my parents left from their house and drove about an hour and a half away to the Poconos. They were staying in a timeshare that weekend, and Nina and I drove over and spent one night with them there. And the next morning they were going to get up and head back home, back south. And my parents knew I was planning to ask Nina, and they supported that. So they gave us some time alone after they left. And so that's when I proposed to your mom. And she said...
The next day?
Yeah, that morning. And she said yes. And so it was definitely exciting. And so we left there, drove back to New York to see her family and tell them the news. So
you asked for her hand in marriage, and the next day you proposed?
That's right.
Did you already have the ring and everything?
I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice, okay.
Yes. And I felt at that time, like everything that had happened to me in my past had happened for a reason. I felt like God had been protecting me all along. I felt that this was God's plan evolving right before my eyes. And I really felt grateful. I felt very grateful to the Lord for taking care of me.
Yeah, and so once we got engaged, we were very purposeful in what we did. We read several books together. We did a workbook called Before You Say I Do. It had like 12 chapters, and you're looking up different scriptures in the Bible and what they say, and you're answering a lot of questions. I had a workbook. Nina had the same workbook. We'd work through it separately, and then we'd get together and talk about it. We also did some premarital counseling with the pastor of the church that we were attending. And not only did we do it with one pastor, but the church where she had gone on the fall retreat, that we'd gone on the fall retreat where she became a Christian, accepted Jesus into her life, that pastor, we also went to premarital counseling with him as well. So, we were getting a lot of, input from other people, spending time, making sure we were on the same page on different values and things that were important to us.
So when was the fall retreat again? What month?
November.
Yeah, it was in
November.
the fall. I can't remember.
So
exactly.
you went from not having personal relationship with Jesus to having personal relationship with Jesus in November, to then you got engaged in 4 months in March. Of 20.
Yeah, so
March of whatever that year was.
So we met in February. She became a believer in
November.
September.
September.
September
Was the retreat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In November we started going out.
Oh, okay.
And then the next March we got engaged. So we knew each other 9 months. We dated 4 months before we got engaged. We were engaged 6 months and got married.
Wow. I feel like that. So people I guess, I don't know, 2026, like that's going to sound like kind of crazy, like pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
And people will think like, well, you just probably did that fast because you're like Christians and you didn't want to have sex. Was that part of the reason, or how did you navigate physical boundaries and, that side of your relationship in that short period of time?
Well, being from a Arab, Middle Eastern background and coming from that culture,
Yeah.
growing up in that culture, it was always ingrained in my mind that sex is something that is reserved for marriage. And it wasn't really based on any spiritual or religious value. It was based on my cultural values. And so I had always just, it was almost like that it's just stuck in my head. It was just ingrained in my mind, and it was something that I valued, personally. And so that was a big boundary for me.
Yeah, and for me, I think it was based on Christian values. So there was a passage in Genesis 2:24, which God says, "For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one." So I believe that sex is definitely good in the bounds of a covenant marriage relationship between a man and a woman. And so it's not something that we wanted to do because of her background and my background as well. Yes, we kissed and we hugged before we got married.
You hugged before you got married?
Yeah, we did that.
Oh my gosh.
But, it definitely wasn't easy when you're attracted to someone. But I'm definitely glad we waited.
So you waited, you didn't have sex till you were married?
No.
So then, let's say you could speak to, I don't know, single men and women that are listening to this episode now. Maybe they're dating and they're like, oh, that's like an old-timey thing, like waiting till you're married to have sex.
Right.
Even Christians today, they don't necessarily think like, oh, you need to wait till you're married.
Right.
Would you say it's better to wait until you're married? And then what would you say to any single men or women who are trying to think about, should I wait till I'm married to have sex, or should I just have sex now?
Yeah.
I definitely think it's worth waiting. I definitely think that you should wait to have sex until you're married. I think that by doing that, you're showing respect for yourself, you're showing respect for the other person. Not only that, but you're also valuing your dignity, you're valuing the dignity of the other person. I really do believe that sex should be reserved for a marriage relationship where there's a commitment made before God, and not before.
Yeah.
Because it's a meaningful commitment. It's only when you're married before God where there's a meaningful commitment between two people, a meaningful covenant between two people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for me, I think when you have sexual intimacy before marriage, it clouds your judgment.
Yeah.
And in dating, really, especially like it doesn't seem like we were that old, 26 and 29, but we were, well into our careers. They were established. We were living on our own. And so I didn't want to date just to date. And so you're really trying to determine in dating if this is your forever person. Is this the person that God wants you to spend the rest of your life with? And so if you're sexually active, I believe you're putting a barrier between you and God. And then it's more difficult for you to hear really what he has for you. What is he saying? Is this the right person or not? And so you really don't want to have that barrier there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree from my experience as well, dating in the past and not having had sex for the last 4 or 5 years myself. It's been pretty clear, I guess, when I've gone on dates with women in the past. In the last few years being a Christian, you don't have the physical intimacy to cloud your judgment for sure. Yeah. So I can see how God designed it that way. It's just for one person. And also you're taking something away in a sense from another person if you have sex with them, it's like hurting you in a way and hurting them. And if you're not going to end up being married and like being together forever, then you're taking something away from that other person's spouse in the future.
Right.
So
That's right.
yeah, okay, that's good. Well, what do you think about, I don't know, like marriage in general? Is there anything that you wish you could go back and tell yourselves before you were married to begin with? Anything that you would say maybe to yourselves before that first date at your house, mom, your parents' house?
Well, it's when you're young, you don't realize how fast time is going to go, but it really does. It goes by quickly. And I would say to just enjoy the different stages of life, the early marriage before children, the time when you do have children, the empty nest, which we're in right now. I think it's important to continue to support each other and to work together to support each other through these changes, because especially the empty nest stage for me was not the easiest stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one thing I would say is marriage is not a 50-50 relationship. It's really 100-100. You got to be all in for a marriage really to work and to thrive. I'm reminded of a passage in Ephesians 5 where Jesus talks about the marriage relationship. And he describes that husbands are to love their wives as Christ loved the church.
Paul.
Yeah,
Right?
Paul said.
Ephesians
What did I
5.
say? Christ said. That's right. Paul said. Thank you. And so a verse at the end of that passage, Ephesians 5:33, says, "Each man must love his wife, and the wife must respect her husband." And so I think those two things, love from the husband to the wife and respect from the wife to the husband, is very important. I think most husbands would do literally almost anything for their wife if they truly felt respected by their wife. I can remember a time when we had an opportunity after you and your oldest sister was born to move to Missouri for an opportunity with the company. And, Nina and I talked about it. Nina had left the company at that point after you were born, or when you were born. She basically retired from the company. And I remember us talking about it, and I felt so respected by your mother at that point about this opportunity. Here we were going to move to a place we really knew no one, and we'd kind of be on our own there, kind of starting again. And I remember how respected I felt by her. And there's another passage in Genesis 29, verse 31 to 35, and it's talking about Jacob and his wife Leah. And the first 4 sons that she had, she named them, or they named them 4 names. One was Reuben, which means seen, Simeon, which means heard, Levi, which means attached or connected to, and Judah, which means praised. And I think for most women, from their husbands, if they felt seen, heard, connected, or attached to their husband and praised by their husband, they would definitely feel loved. And so I think that's a kind of a recipe for things to work out well, in a marriage. I think it's very important that husbands understand their wives and know what's important to them. And like for your mom, one of the things that's been very important to her is feeling being kind, okay? And that's something I've had to work on over the years, just to show kindness. And so it's each husband figuring out what's important to their wife.
That's good, that Leah and Jacob thing.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that before. I like that. Well, what would you say to single men and women listening maybe that are like not sure if marriage is even for them? Anything you'd say, just, how long have y'all been married now?
33 years.
33 years.
33 years.
So yeah, at 33 years of marriage, would you say it's even like worth it, like to an audience of single men and women? Like, should they be wanting to get married, do you think?
Yes, definitely. I think marriage is a beautiful thing. I think when you find someone that you loves you back, You have a great relationship. You can work together. You have a partner for life. You have a companion. You share children together. You share your life together with somebody. I think, especially when you both have the same faith, the same beliefs, when you believe that God has brought you together, it makes it even more special. When you believe and you trust in the Lord to lead the relationship, to bless you with children, to guide and care for your children, I think that makes a huge difference in your life. It enriches your life. It makes your life more richer and more full and more meaningful.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say yes. I'll say it from the perspective of your mom. Definitely is hopeful that God leads someone to you that'll be your future spouse. And also to your oldest sister, God's praying, Nina's praying, I'm praying that God will lead the right guy to her too. So definitely is something that's, it's a lot of work, and it's not always going to be easy, but it's definitely something worthwhile.
Okay. That's great. Thank you both. Okay, so y'all recommend marriage in general, but what's been the biggest challenge of being married? I'm sure it hasn't been easy. 33 years is a long time. But congratulations on such a long marriage.
Thank you. I would say the biggest challenge for us has been communication. I don't think either one of us grew up talking about our feelings, expressing our feelings, learning how to navigate our feelings, especially for me being an immigrant, being part of a family of an immigrant family here. My parents had 5 children, and so they were busy raising us. They were busy protecting us and providing for our physical needs and worrying about our feelings and asking us how we felt about this or that really wasn't their priority. But that's not to say that communication is not important. It really is. It's a very important part of a relationship, and it's something that's learned. It's a process. It's an ongoing process, and I think for us, we're still learning how to communicate with each other and what works. Everybody has different communication styles and so on.
Yeah, I think for me is working to stay on the same page. So we have this foundation, which is our spiritual foundation. Definitely family being a priority as well. Where we spend our time, where we spend our money, what we think about physical intimacy and how we show that to each other. All those things are important, and you need to be on the same page with your spouse. And storms of life are going to come, things are going to happen, and during those times it's very important that you stay together. Back in 1997, we found out we were expecting our 3rd child, and we were excited about that. This was after you and Caroline, and we were due in May of 1998. And then late in October of 97, Nina had some complications, and we found out we miscarried. And that was a tough time, and it made it even tougher because we were just trying to get Nina well. She had some complications from it. And what I found is when you're going through those tough times, you definitely have to communicate, or your relationship will start to drift, and it can even fracture. So I think just working together and staying on the same page, that was what I would say has been the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Well, on the flip side, what about biggest blessing of 33 years of marriage?
I've always wanted to have children. Having children was very important to me. As a matter of fact, even during our wedding ceremony, we asked the pastor who married us to say a special prayer of blessing for children during the wedding ceremony, and he did, and it was very special. And so having you and your sisters, and now Eden, our granddaughter, I would say for me has been the biggest blessing. You are by far the biggest blessing of my life.
Yeah, and I'd say for me is companionship. When we were picking out our wedding bands, We actually had inside of our wedding bands something engraved. It was a reference to a scripture passage. It's from Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, and it says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. And then in that passage, it actually gives three examples how two people can be better than one person. Oh. But at the end, it wraps up. It says, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart. And so I found that to be very interesting, where you have 2, 2, 2, 2, but the passage wraps up a cord of 3 strands. And what I believe that 3 strands is you, your spouse, and God. So when you have those 3 wound together, it's a very strong relationship. You know, you're going to have ups and downs, and we've had ups and downs in our relationship. But I think of some recent examples, like you might find us in the evening where we're sitting in our 2 reclining chairs. Nina might be watching an Arabic show or a Spanish show on TV to work on her language skills, while I might be sitting in the chair next to her working on genealogy. So we're spending time together, but kind of doing our own interests too. I think of some opportunities where we've served together. Like when y'all were young, Nina was leading a soccer ministry at our church, and we were all involved in helping with that. So we were serving together. We facilitate a small group in our church now, and so we serve together doing that. We go on Sundays, and I serve greeting people. Nina serves with helping people find resources like Bibles that they might need. But recently, one of the things we've really enjoyed is traveling together. This past summer, we went to the country of Jordan, and that trip we planned it all out. We knew where we were staying every night. We were going for 19 days, and it was a great trip for us. But when we were ready to fly home, end of our trip got extended because our flight got canceled, and we ended up spending 25 days there. Those last few days, we just kind of went with the flow. We went and booked some places at the last minute and went to some other places. We recently just got back from a trip in Morocco, and that was a trip we did that was very different. We booked our airfare 9 months ago and a vehicle 2 months ago, but we didn't book a place to stay there until within an hour, 2 hours, when we were actually going to go to sleep each night. So we go to a new area, travel around, do what we like to do, go to markets and things like that. Then we were ready to kind of call it a night. We would book a place, and then we travel to another place. And you really can't do something like that unless you are communicating well, enjoying each other's company, and trusting each other.
And those are fun trips, you know. I would normally serve as the translator, the interpreter, the lead negotiator.
Yeah.
And I'd give insights into the culture, you know, because I come from that culture, so I understand things a little bit better. And Jay has got some great skills. So we work together. You know, our skills are different skills, but they complement each other. And Jay is the planner. He's a great planner in general, but he certainly does a great job planning our trips. Most of our trips, he's been the navigator. He by far can read a map far better than I ever could. And he's the driver, and he's also the protector. So we really work well together. We complement each other, and we have a lot of fun together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think, you know, the Jordan trip we definitely enjoyed a lot. Many people don't know that there's a lot of biblical sites in Jordan. Many people think they might all be in Israel, but definitely a lot of sites there, like where Jesus was baptized is there in Jordan, where Elijah was taken up to heaven. It's there in Jordan, where Moses saw the promised land, where Jacob wrestled with God, the area of the Gadarenes. Some of the cities of the Decapolis are all in Jordan, and we got to visit a lot of those holy sites. And so it was great. And the people there, you want to touch on the people?
Can't tell you enough about how wonderful the people of Jordan are. They're just so kind, so friendly, hospitable, and generosity. So generous. I have so many examples of their generosity. they took care of us. I mean, I felt well taken care of by them. We felt safe. And it was just by far one of our favorite trips. I just really enjoyed interacting with the people, the local people. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Was that your favorite trip y'all have ever done?
For me, definitely because of the people, really. I mean, you go to a country where the people are so welcoming and so friendly, so kind and generous to you,
Yeah.
You feel so welcomed. It really makes you feel wonderful about your stay there, and it just made that trip for me very special and one of the most enjoyable trips for me.
Yeah, I think another thing I'd like to point out is in both of those countries, in Jordan and in Morocco, when we would talk to local people because we wanted to experience the culture and the food and all those things, when Nina would be using her language skills because her first language is Arabic, and talking to people in both of those countries in Arabic, they would be like, where's she from, And when they found out she was Palestinian, there was this immediate welcoming. People all over the world love the Palestinian people, and it was something that is very meaningful. We've met Palestinian people even last year when we went to Chile a year ago, and it's just very interesting to experience people from all over the world and their cultures and where they come from originally. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank y'all for sharing. Glad that there's been more time to talk about the blessing than there was on the challenge.
There you go.
Good point.
I would like to have you touch on children and what that's been like. Been blessed to have 4 children. You talked about your third child in 97 who you miscarried, but me being 30 years old, the oldest, middle child, Caroline, who's 29, and then Courtney, who's your youngest, who's 26 now. And Courtney's the only one that's married and recently had your first grandchild. What's been the emotion around having children? And we'll start with the biggest challenge.
Wow, the biggest challenge by far for me has been letting go of my children, letting you and your sisters go. It's been the hardest thing I've had to do because I feel like you and your sisters are a part of me, and you're just a part of me that's walking around outside of me. So I remember some of the happiest times of my life have been when you were little, when you were younger, when you were all at home, and we did so many things together. We had so much fun learning together, doing so many fun things together, growing together. And having to let you all go, especially recently over the last few years, as you've all had left the home and gone off to pursue your own lives, it's been very hard for me. But I've had to learn to entrust you to the Lord. The best thing for me, the best thing I can do is pray for you all, to pray that God would continue to guide you, to protect you, and to lead you in the direction that He wants you to go.
Yeah, and I think for me a big challenge, especially when we had children, when I had you and then your oldest sister, is that if we went back to do things differently, we would date more. So once y'all came, we really didn't have other family in the area, and so rarely did we go leave you with a sitter and go out and spend time together. And I think it's very important for your listeners that are listening that they need to continue to date their spouse and spend time together. And I think, in your relationship, if you have God first and your spouse second and the kids third, that's actually the most healthy relationship order for the kids to feel secure. And sometimes you can fall into traps, and we've done it as well, where you elevate the children above the spouse and thinking out you're looking out for their needs. But if your spouse is in the right order there, then the children feel secure in the relationship. So that's something we've made mistakes on, and we would probably do things differently. And as a dad, you want to fix things. When things aren't going right for your children, you want to fix things and make them right. But especially as y'all have gotten older, you can't always fix things. You just got to let y'all learn from the life experiences that you're going through. And as Nina said, pray for y'all.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you both. Yeah. What about the biggest blessing of having children? What's that been for you?
The biggest blessing is just, the simple things of life, of having your children, of just watching them grow, watching their personalities develop and their talents develop. We were fortunate in that I didn't have to work when you were all little. I didn't have to put you in daycare or anything like that. We were able to spend time together at home, and that's been such a huge blessing, just being there and seeing you go through the different stages from the time that I remember the day you came down the stairs and you walked, you crawled out of your crib. I remember the time when the first words you said, I was there. I was there for all these special moments. And for you and your sisters, I remember so many little details that I've kept in my mind.
Yeah.
What was the first word I said?
Mama.
Oh.
Of course she was going to say that.
No,
Right?
no, actually the first words were dad, something like that. Yeah, dad,
Oh, yeah.
dad, yeah.
Okay. That's funny.
She's lying on the podcast. No.
What about for you, Dad?
Yeah, for me, I think definitely seeing you grow and develop, as she mentioned, but for me it's slightly different. As y'all were involved in different activities and sports, and your youngest sister in theater, I think just seeing you grow and develop through those things y'all were involved in, and seeing you excel in a lot of those things, and that was exciting. For me, the largest blessing has been one of the things I described in the episode 50, and it's really the spiritual growth over the last 4 to 5 years in our family and in each of you. And I think for your mom too, that's what's blessed us the most in the last 4 or 5 years. So definitely
Absolutely.
a great thing.
Yeah. Okay, so all the challenges and blessings of marriage and kids, 33 years. If you could go back and talk to yourselves when you were in your mid-20s, like 25 years old, what would you go back and tell that version of yourself if you could get in a time machine tonight and go back to talk to that 25-year-old version of yourself?
Yeah, I think for me is definitely keep growing. You got to grow as a person, individually. And if, as the guy in the relationship, the husband, you have to be a servant leader to your wife as well as your children. And I mentioned earlier some of those dry years for me. I wasn't the person that I needed to be for Nina or for y'all during some of those years. But, we're both changing. So as both of you are changing, you have to keep growing together as well. And you have to be communicating during those times that you are changing.
What do you think if you could go back to the dry years, like you've talked about that the last episode 50, and then tonight a little bit, like if you could talk to that version of yourself, what would you go back and tell yourself? How old were you when that dry season was even?
It's probably in the mid to late 40s to mid 50s.
Yeah, so what do you think happened there?
Well, one of the things that happened was we'd moved to a new area, and we were looking for a local church that we felt comfortable in and we could grow in and that y'all could grow in. And we visited a lot of churches in that area, and we really just didn't get plugged in and didn't feel like this is where we need to go. And so I think even during that time, if I could go back and do it, we would have found a place to get connected. So I think that hurt a lot. I was definitely working a lot of hours, providing for the family. And then when, life things happen that sometimes you just bury yourself in different things instead of that open communication that we're trying to have even better today than we did before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. How about you, Mom? If you could go back to 25-year-old Nina, what would you tell her?
Let's see, I would say make some good friends, people who are going to be a good influence on you, who are going to hold you accountable. I would say pray about your future, pray for your future spouse, continue to seek guidance from the Lord. I would say that, hey, there's going to be a lot of little decisions that you're going to make, a lot of little decisions. And every single decision, no matter how small, will lead you to the next destination or the next point in life and so on, the next pivotal point in your life. So don't underestimate these little tiny decisions because they're really impactful. They're really important. Continue to pray for guidance from God regarding those decisions and pray for clarity from the Lord as to what decision you should make, no matter how small it is, because they all build upon each other. And if you do pray for clarity, you can be sure that God will make it clear for you which direction you should go.
That's great. So as we're wrapping up the marriage series with this episode 51, the last of the 4 married series episodes that we've done, I've asked each of the married couples who have come on this question, but I want to ask the two of y'all, Dad and Mom. So if someone just listened to the whole episode and they're single themselves and they already have a personal relationship with Jesus, what's one thing you'd want them to take away from y'all's story?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's okay to be single and spend time, be active in your faith. I'm reminded of a passage in Ecclesiastes, and that book was written by probably the wisest person that ever lived outside of Jesus, and that was Solomon. And in there, he talked about there's a time for every season in your life. And there's a word used in that book many times, and it's called vanity, or some translations call it meaningless. And you almost get the message in that book that life can be meaningless, but really the summary of the book is life without God is meaningless. And so I also think about a passage in Proverbs 31. That's the last book in the last chapter in the book of Proverbs. In verse 10 to 31, it talks about the virtuous woman or the woman of excellence. And so if you're single still, and if you're a man, you may want to go check out that chapter to see what kind of woman that you might want to marry, and you want to be the kind of man that would marry that kind of woman. And if you're a woman, you may want to go check that out so that you could be that kind of woman so that a godly man would want to marry you. So that would be my guys.
Proverbs 31.
Yep.
How about you, Mom? If you could speak to single men and women who already know Jesus.
That brings a song to mind by Jeremy Camp called Keep Me in the Moment. And there are some lines in that song like, because I don't want to miss what you have for me. Help me live with my eyes wide open. So I would say to those people, yes, continue to pray about your future, pray for your future spouse if you're not married. But I would say also live in the moment, be present, enjoy this season of life, enjoy this time of life, because you don't want to be planning and doing and so busy that you miss what God may have right in front of you. You don't want to miss that, just like the song says.
Yeah. That's good. And then if you could speak to single men and women who don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, or maybe they've been tracking along through some number of episodes, maybe all 51 they've listened to now at this point, and they haven't accepted Jesus into their own heart, what would you want to communicate to those single men and women?
I would say simply talk to Jesus. If you have, just like you would a friend, just carry on a dialogue, carry on a conversation with Jesus. Let him know what's burdening you. Let him know what's on your heart. Jesus is not pushy. Jesus really is waiting for an invitation from you. He's waiting for you to let him in. And believe me, if you send out that invitation to Jesus, he's going to accept it. And it'll be one of the best things that you ever do, because you can't find a better friend than Jesus. Jesus will always be there for you when nobody else will be. Jesus will always listen to you. He will answer your prayers one way or the other. He will make things clear for you. So you can be assured that when you talk to Jesus, that he'll be there for you. That's what I would say.
That's great.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say, God sees you. I'm reminded of two different stories in the Bible. One from Genesis 16, where Hagar was mistreated, and God showed up and ministered to her. And she called God in that phase of her life, Jehovah El Roi, the God who sees me. And then I'm reminded of a story in Mark chapter 6, verse 45 to 52. And the disciples were rowing across the Sea of Galilee, which is a huge freshwater lake. And it was at night, and a storm arose. And about 3:30 in the morning, which obviously it was dark, Jesus was up on the hillside praying, and the Bible says he saw them. So how was it that he saw them out in the middle of this lake when it was dark? And he came walking to them on the water. He calmed the storm, so he met their need. And so I would say, you're created in the image of God. God loves you. He knows you. He sees you. And he wants what's best for you. And ultimately, what's best with you starts with you knowing him personally. Oh. And so if you open the door to your heart and invite him into your life, then he'll come in. And I talked a lot about that in the episode 50.
Yeah.
But that's what I would say. God sees you.
That was actually one of the most impactful verses when I was coming to faith, was Luke 18:41, where Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem to be crucified, and he hears a blind man calling out to him, "Lord, I want to see, I want to see." And Jesus went up to the blind man and asked him what I could do for you. And then it was obvious, like, he was blind, right? He wants to be able to see, but Jesus still asked him the question and had him respond, I want to see, Lord. And then Jesus restored his sight. So that story really struck me when I was trying to explore faith and what I believed, and was there a God? And if there was a God, then what God was there? Like, what this person, Jesus, God in a body, restored someone's sight. Like, that's really powerful. I don't know anybody that's done that before. And then it was because the man wanted to see and called out to Jesus to do that. And Jesus then restored his sight. And at that point in my life, I was really blinded, I felt like, in what I was doing in life. And so I felt like I needed an awakening or an ability to be able to see in my own life at that time. So yeah, if that's you in your life and you've been listening for however many episodes, maybe this is your first episode, or maybe it's 51st, and you feel like something's missing, like, I want to be able to see what's really the purpose of life. Why am I created? How am I here? And not just because you grew up a Christian or you grew up in whatever faith that you might be in, or maybe you grew up without a faith. I think it's worth asking the question, just because I'm here in this circumstance doesn't mean that's how you have to be forever. I think it's worth asking the question,
definitely,
what's really the truth?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. Thank you both. Okay, last question. We'll wrap up with this. Are there any final thoughts you want to leave myself or the Single Man podcast audience with, or whoever's going to listen to this episode in the future?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm so proud of you, Carlton. You have spent so much time and your energy and so much of your own financial resources in putting together these episodes. And you've done a quality job with all of that. Most of all, I am proud of you for your faithfulness to the Lord and continually to carry out what you strongly felt was a calling by Him to complete these episodes. And so you were faithful, you were steadfast, and you honored the Lord in obeying what he asked you to do. You felt very strongly about it. I remember having so many discussions with you about it. And this hasn't been an easy process over the last few years. I mean, I'm sure it's seamless to people watching the episodes, but
Yep.
there have been a lot of hurdles, and you've been steadfast and you've been faithful, and I am incredibly proud of you for that. I love you, Habibi. I also want to thank Jay for all his leadership, the great leadership that he provides, and the support that he is to our family.
Yeah. I think first off, I want to thank Nina for this life journey together. I actually wore this tie. As you know, I rarely wear a tie, but this is the tie that I wore when we left our wedding reception to go on our honeymoon.
Oh.
And so I had it, I kept it, and I wore it today in honor of her. It hasn't always been smooth in our relationship. It's definitely been eventful. We've had many blessings. Actually, much of the advice that we shared today with your audience are still things we're working on today. And we haven't arrived as individuals or as a couple, and we really never will. But we're committed to the journey together. One of the vows we took was till death do us part, and so we're committed to that. But just wrapping up, I want to thank you. Thank you for inviting us to episode 51 and also 49 and 50 as well. Thank you for your faithfulness. Some people may think you're doing this for the money. You've received $0 for this podcast, and you've invested, as Nina said, a lot of your time and your resources so that you could be a difference maker for single guys and women too that have listened, that are going through the journey you went through 4 or 5 years ago. And you were looking for some things that you knew what you were trying to present would be things other people could benefit from. So I wanted you to know I love you. We love you. More importantly, God loves you. He has a great future ahead for you. We're looking forward to next week's final episode, number 52. And I know your listeners, you don't want to miss it. There's going to be a recap, and it's definitely going to be worth watching. So God bless them, and God bless you. So thank you.
God bless you, Habibi.
Thank you,
We
Mom.
love you.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. Yeah, it's been a good 2-year journey, and excited to wrap everything up with episode 52 next. So I appreciate you both coming on and coming the last few weeks to film these last few episodes, 49, 50, and 51, and excited to have y'all's story documented as part of the 52 episode journey of the Single Man podcast. So love you both, and thank you for all the ways that you've poured into me and invested in me and made me the man I am today. So continuing to grow and looking forward to many more great years and memories ahead.
Okay. I love you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching episode 51. If you enjoyed it, share it with a friend. If you think a friend would benefit from listening to any of the previous 50 episodes as well, we'd love for you to text them the link. That's part of the vision I had from the beginning, was this wasn't just a 52-week journey and that was it, that this would live on past 52 episodes. And so it can still reach single men who don't know Jesus, I believe, even after the 52 episodes wrap up. So definitely would encourage you to share it with a friend. The power of an invitation goes a long way. And we'll be back with episode 52, where I'll be wrapping everything up. From my perspective, it'll just be me by myself, the 4th ever solo episode of just me. And if there's been any episodes that you've missed, would encourage you to go back and check those out as well. As part of episode 52, we'll have a little montage of the previous 51 episodes and each guest I've had on's main takeaway for single men. So I'm excited to have that documented as part of the 52 episode journey. And then there'll be a time of me just speaking directly to the audience about what I've learned and how the podcast has impacted me the last 2 years. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. This has been Carlton French. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. If someone you know would benefit from this week's episode, I'd love for you to text them the link and invite them to listen. You never know how a simple invitation could change someone's life. We'll be back next Friday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, with a new episode. Until then, check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and you can engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.